Hey everyone, Boise State football beat writer Ron Counts here with UCF beat writer Matt Murschel. We're going to talk a little bit of the season opener today. We're both going to kind of toss some questions back and forth to each other. But first of all, let's just talk about the magnitude of this game. I mean, I feel like this is almost for Boise State, this is a season deciding game. You win this game, you're heading to the top 25. You're up there with Cincinnati in the driver's seat for that New Year's Six bowl game. Two new coaching staffs. It's on ESPN. How are the folks in Orlando seeing this game, Matt?
Well, it's a big game. It's a huge game. I think, as you mentioned, because it's a new coaching staff, because Gus Malzahn has arrived here, and there was a lot of excitement with his hiring, and because of the fact that he spent time at Auburn, and he said all the right things, talking about wanting to contend for championships, not just at the American Athletic Conference level, but at national championships. And he talked about wanting to be a top. This is a top 25 program. You're in top 20, I think is what he said. So you add all that together and you put on the fact you're playing a Boise State team that has had a reputation for being one of the stellar group of five programs over the last decade or so. So there's a lot of attention with this. And I think, as you mentioned, Thursday night game, it's on ESPN. There's going to be a lot of eyes on this, a lot of attention. So this is really kind of their big game to kind of kick things off over the next couple of weeks.
Boise State's going to play a pretty talented quarterback down there in UCF and Dylan Gabriel, getting some Heisman hope. Is he a guy you see as one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and what are his strengths on the field?
Yeah, I mean, I really do. I mean, based on what he's done the first two seasons, I mean, he arrived as a true freshman, came in January as an early enrollee, and he was in the middle of this four-player, kind of quarterback competition, a couple of years ago. And a lot of people were just kind of they were dismissing him. You remember that was when Brandon Winbush, the Notre Dame transfer, had gotten here. And they thought that, Brandon was going to get the job and Dylan was going to kind of sit back and kind of wait. And then, it was kind of funny that in the second week of the season, Dylan took over as the starting quarterback, and he hasn't let go of the position yet. And he's shown a lot of poise. His work ethic has been one of the things they've talked a lot about. I know the coaching staff has been, and his leadership skills, and then you look at his physical abilities. I mean, he's got a strong arm. He can get the ball down the field. He throws one of the prettiest deep balls you'll ever see. Very much of a rainbow is what I've been told by a lot of coaches. And when you've seen from him down the field, and he's a cerebral guy. His dad was the former Hawaii coach, former Hawaii quarterback. Back in the 80s. So he comes from a line of quarterbacks. He understands the game. He studies it a lot, and he's one of those guys that I think is just starting to take that next step. From year one to year two is a big step, and year two to year three, he's really kind of grown a little bit. One of the things that the staff has told us they like about him more than anything now is that he's starting to get to a point where he can read the progressions, read the defenses, get to a point where it's second nature. He doesn't have to really think about it. And he's got more comfortable in the pocket. And the biggest thing really from the players have told us is his leadership ability. When UCF went through that coaching change, they went through about maybe 2 weeks where they didn't have a head coach. And it was Dylan Gabriel, who we were told kind of stepped up and said, listen, we got to stay together. We're going to figure this out. We're going to get a good coach, and then we're going to see what happens. So they've said his leadership has been kind of above and beyond. And I will add this, that UCF quarterback coach G.J. Kinney told me the other day that what Dylan reminds him of a little bit is Michael Vick, because Kinney played with Michael Vick in the NFL. And he said, he's got that kind of snap on the ball. And the way he can throw his intermediate passes with that kind of speed and accuracy, that's what he kind of reminded him of. He played with Tim Tebow as well. And I asked him, did he seem more like a Tim Tebow type player? And he said, no, actually, it was more like Michael Vick. He doesn't run like Michael Vick. Don't get me wrong there. But he says he does have that kind of snap and the accuracy with the arm. So I think that's what's kind of made him stood out so far this year.
If you're a dual threat quarterback, there might not be a better comparison than Michael Vick. That's high.
Yeah, when he said that, it really kind of got my attention, because oh, Michael Vick, yeah, So, and you can also see too, and I'll add this real quick, that Dylan has added some muscle over the offseason. He looks physically different than he looked last year. He said he'd added about 5 to 6 pounds, mostly muscle, and he said he did it. He feels comfortable in his body now. He feels a little bit better. So I expect him to run the football a little bit more as well this year.
There's a lot of talk about UCF's offense right now, but there's been some attrition at the running back position. So they lost their top 2 rushers from a year ago. Then this year, a third rusher gets kicked off the team. R.J. Harvey's out for this season. How much of a concern is depth at that position, and who's going to carry the load?
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know if it's always say it was a concern, but I think you have to definitely think about it a lot, because again, they came into this. The idea was Montavious Thompson, who was the kind of third string running back on this team. He was more of their big power rusher. He's not on the team anymore. He surprisingly kind of was we found out that he wasn't going to be on the team this year. That meant that RJ Harvey, who was kind of a transfer from Virginia, who came in as a quarterback and then made the switch to running back, he expected to be kind of maybe the guy to take up a majority of the look. He looked really good in spring. He was really kind of working well in that position. They went out and they also got Isaiah Bowser, a player from Northwestern. And then Harvey goes down with his injury. So now all of a sudden Bowser, who's really kind of the most experienced, running back on the roster, he ends up kind of taking over more of the idea if he's going to be the top runner. My guess is he's going to share that load with Mark Anthony Richards, who's another transfer from Auburn, who was hurt last year. I think he's familiar with Gus Malzahn. I think they'll probably somehow do some sort of rotation. UCF also has 3 guys who on the roster from last year. Johnny Richardson, who's a very fast speedster out of the backfield. Demarius Good, another young running back as well. And then Trillian Coles, who came in with Bentavious Thompson during his recruiting class. He was hurt last year, so he didn't play. So they've got 3 guys who got a little bit of experience on the roster, but haven't really had an opportunity to play. Then they also got a freshman coming in, Anthony Williams, who's a guy that's supposed to be really highly touted. I think he rushed for over 2,000 yards in high school the last couple of years. So they've got depth at the position. It's just the experience factor. And like I said, so I think Bowser's probably more than likely going to get some of the early carries. I think you're going to see a little bit mixing things up there. But yeah, when you look at this roster, most of it, there was a lot of experience. Running back was probably the biggest position of concern.
What stands out about Bowser in the field?
Oh, he's a big guy, really big guy. And he's a bruising runner. I mean, he's got, like I said, the experience factor. He played in the Big Ten championship game a couple of years ago. He was going to be the starter this last year at Northwestern, and then he got nicked up a little bit. But we've seen him so far a couple times, and he's a big guy, a big runner. The question is, is he I don't know if he's going to be a full-time, carry the ball 25 times a game type rusher, or if they're going to try to mix it up. I think based on what Gus Malzahn has done in the past, I think they'll probably mix it up a little bit, bring in some young guys, especially some of those speedsters from the outside. I think they're going to try to use that. Johnny Richardson has been using kickoff returns as well. Very fast, one of the faster guys on the team.
The defense really, really struggled last year. The offense was all the rage, but the defense didn't stop many teams. They bring in Big Cat Bryant, one of the best names in college football as a transfer this year. I mean, how good is this defense going to be this year? Is it going to be better than last year?
Yeah, I think it is. Listen, they were ranked 123rd last year, and they really struggled. And part of that was, they lost a lot of talent. They had some guys opt out. Kalia Davis, their talented defensive lineman, he opted out because of COVID situation. Tay Gowan, who was their starting cornerback, he opted out because of COVID. He got COVID. I think he got COVID, and his daughter, I think, was worried about his daughter at the time too as well. So he didn't play at all last year. So they had to rely on the young guys. And then in mid-season, they lost a couple defenders from some off the field issues. They had a couple players, they got a player get arrested, and then they involved some of the players, and they got removed from the team. So that really hampered what they were able to do. So they had to rely on, a lot of young talent. They actually played 2 true freshmen at cornerback for most of the season last year, which was basically throwing these guys into the fire. And as well as they were talented, it was tough to deal with. And you saw that kind of catch up with them as well. So that's going to be different this year. They've got some experience. Davis is back. He said having a year off really helped his body. He looks in great shape. And then they bring in a guy like Big Cat Bryant, who is, if you look at his workouts, we watch him on Instagram. He looks amazing. He told us on media day, he wants to prove to everyone he's the best defensive player in the country. He says if anyone gets in his way, he's going to run him over, basically. So he's very, very a great interview, very boisterous. I think that's going to be huge for them. Then they bring in, new coaching staff. Travis Williams comes in as their new defensive coordinator, and he's a more high energy octane guy. He wants these guys running around. They're going to tackle better. They've done a good job of bringing in 2 coaches for the defensive line, for defensive tackles and ends. Everyone has told us that's helped them kind of understand what they want to do up front. And their linebackers are experienced. And the secondary is going to probably be the biggest questions, but they do have some talent there as well. So this is a defense I think that will play better. It's going to be multiple from what Travis Williams has told us. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but he thinks they're going to change things up game to game. And they're going to rotate some guys. They feel like they've got enough talent there. They brought in some guys, like you mentioned, Bryant, and some other defenders they feel like can step in there as well. So if the defense can play better than it did last year, and the offense is in the same sort of caliber that it's been the last couple of years, this is where this team can have some success. When they were winning in 2017 and 2018, the defense was playing really well. The last couple of years, they haven't seen that. And I think that's been the biggest hurdle for them, because they were in, I think it was 6 or 8 of their losses the last 2 years were by one score. And there were second half games that they gave up second half, they gave up halftime leads and were, really kind of lost the game in the second half. So that's because of the defense. So I do believe the defense will be better. How much better, it just remains to be seen right now.
We talked about how two new coaching staffs in this game this year. So Gus Malzahn's offense, how is it going to be different from what UCF has run in the past?
That's an interesting question, because Gus has been asked this multiple times, throughout the camps, obviously, and he kind of answers it by saying, that it's going to be high powered, it's going to be explosive, and he says, they're going to try to build off what UCF has done in the past. And, when you look at what Gus Malzahn has done, in his previous tenure, at Auburn, they were not nearly as explosive as UCF, obviously, and they were more heavily on the run, I think, at times, but Gus Malzahn hasn't had a quarterback like Dylan Gabriel, and I think he understands that. He understands that Dylan's a different type of quarterback. They have a lot of options on the receiver position. I do believe they're going to throw the football, and whether they throw as deep and on an often as they've done in the last couple of years remains to be seen. I think they're going to mix the run in a little bit more. I think when UCF had success in 2017, 2018, it was based a lot heavily on the run game. They were able to run the football a lot more. And McKenzie Milton obviously was a big factor of that as well. But I think, they're going to mix in the run game as much as they can, but they're going to try to push the ball downfield. I think they're going to keep the tempo going. I don't think they're going to go back to doing a huddle. Obviously, Gus is the creator of the no huddle offense. So he's a guy who's not going to probably use the huddle. I expect them to try to do a lot of screens. I expect them to mix things up a little bit with some of their formations. Will they look anything like they did, last couple of years? We're just not sure. I mean, everyone that we've spoken with has kept it really guarded secret about this. But I do think they're going to mix it up. I do think they're going to throw the football a lot more. And I think it's going to be exciting. That's the pitch they've been throwing out to the fans and to the media. It's going to be exciting type of football. So he does have a lot of options there. What I'm interested in is Gus Malzahn mentioned before when he got hired that he's going to return to doing play calling duties. And that was a huge deal because last couple of years, you remember at Auburn, he didn't do play calling duties. And I think I think things lagged a little bit. So he wants to come in there. He's got renewed energy. He wants to do play calling. It's going to be interesting to see kind of where some of that comes from and what they're able to do with that. But I think it's going to look very similar, but they're going to add a little, maybe a little bit more of a running attack to kind of mix things up.
It's been quite a while since Boise State's played in front of a packed house. I think their last capacity stadium was the 2019 Las Vegas Bowl. What can they expect from this bounce house environment?
Well, what's interesting is, this is the first time I think the UCF has played at home in front of a full crowd since 2019 as well, late 2019 against USF. The bounce house is a unique venue. And what I say that is it's when you get there and it's packed, one of the things that it's known for is as soon as they start playing this song Zombie Nation, the fans start jumping up and down and the place actually kind of sways. And it startles people if you've never been there before. And if you're in press box, I put up videos of this before. You see like the water bottles and the things start to sway a little bit. It kind of gets people, a little thrown off there. It's a raucous crowd, and they have 12,000 students. They have student sections on both sides of the stadium, both end zones. It can be really kind of a great atmosphere. When it's full, I expect it to be. I think they sold 98% of the season tickets, if I'm not mistaken. So I expect there to be a good crowd. They expect this to almost be, I'm not saying sellout just yet, but I think they feel it's going to be a full crowd. So the atmosphere is going to be amazing. And I think, there's cabanas on the field as well. So the fans, some premier seating is on the field as well. So fans are going to be there. So it's going to be an interesting game, a big crowd. And I expect fans, Boise State fans will be kind of surprised when things get kind of kicked off.
And at this point, are there any COVID protocols for game day? Any mask requirements, vaccine requirements, anything like that?
No vaccine requirements. Our state, is not mandating that at this point. UCF is asking fans, if you can get vaccinated, please get vaccinated. Obviously, they want to make sure that's being, kind of pushed out. They are strongly recommending that you wear masks indoors. Now, again, that's if you go to the restrooms, places like that inside the stadium, they would suggest that you wear a mask. They are providing masks if you'd like one, and also that they're asking fans to make sure you wash your hands, routinely. They're going to have hand sanitizer stations, everywhere around the stadium as well. And if you're not feeling well or if you had COVID or you've been quarantined, obviously they're asking you not to go to the game. So those are really kind of the kind of restrictions right now in place. I've been told by the school that if anything comes up in the next week or so, anything changes, they'll make some sort of announcement to let people know. But at this point, there's no, proof of vaccination or negative COVID test that's required to get in.